Last spring, I was lucky enough to take part in the offering of a new course at UMass Boston called Hip Hop, History and Practice. I had taught units on hip hop in other classes, but this was different. To teach this class, I teamed up with Dorchester-born recording artist Acrobatic, who's here with us today.
All right.
I had met him when I interviewed him on WUMB's show Commonwealth Journal and immediately felt a great synergy in our conversation. I dreamed up the course because I felt as though we had very different complementary dishes to bring to the educational table. I'm a cultural historian who specializes in popular music studies, and Acrobatic is a practitioner with experience in writing, recording, and performing, with a teacherly bent and experience as a community educator. Hip-hop studies, as it's now known, is widespread and no longer new. There are many classes about the history and social location of hip-hop across the country, even across the river. There's serious scholarship about hip-hop, the music, the industry, the global spread. And on the studio side, institutions such as Berklee College of Music, Oberlin College, and UC Berkeley increasingly offer classes on turntablism. But I didn't know of any classes that combine the two, that pair deep historical and interpretive study with the studio elements, placing those two important kinds of learning in constant dialogue with each other. Hip-hop as a culture, in all of its elements, rapping, DJing, breaking, graffiti style, is a sophisticated vehicle for social inquiry. As they said on American Bandstand, it's got a good beat and you can dance to it. But it also facilitates multi-level and flexible investigation into race, gender, economics, geopolitics, consumerism, current events, technology, and the global flow of people, ideas, sounds, and money. And that's a short list, because I only have 15 minutes. This makes hip-hop studies an extremely useful modality of pedagogy, a nuanced way to teach students to read the world around them. I often tell students that this is what matters so much about pop culture studies. Most people, I tell them, will not say to each other unless they happen to be a character in a 19th century Russian novel, I'm concerned about the state of masculinity in the context of the mass incarceration of African American men. But they will say, did you hear Ice Cube's new song, Nigga Trap? It's sick. And it really is. He calls the prisons concrete slave ships. I have 7 books out. They don't together have 3 words that do that much work. By teaching the course together, Acrobatic and I were able to approach the conversation that is hip-hop from both inside, Ac knows how the industry functions, and outside, I had some critical distance from that industry. For instance, we discussed hip-hop's most controversial word, the N-word. I could talk about how and why it has traveled historically, and he could tell us which recording artists won't ever say it, and which happily call all audience members, including members of all white audiences, by that word. We were able to approach the material as a historian. I insisted on working through the relevant histories when the songs were written, as well as when what they might portray. For example, when Public Enemy says Elvis was a hero to most, you need to know about Elvis's moment as well as Public Enemy's moment. And as an artist, he could break down for non-musicians exactly why a particular beat functioned the way it did. My favorite units on the syllabus were those in which our very different expertise revealed itself. For instance, when we discussed lyrics, I taught them useful theoretical and interpretive concepts. We spent a lot of time talking about call and response in black music, how it locates hip-hop in traditions of work songs, of church music, how it creates a more active sense of audience. Put your hands in the air like you just don't care. Put your hands in the air, I mean it. And now I am realizing that our team teaching was a glorious kind of call and response itself. We talked about intertextuality, a hallmark of African American literature that is key to hip hop. You can't really understand the line, "How you like me now," and LL Cool J's "Mama Said Knock You Out," unless you know that Kool Moe Dee's second album in 1987 was titled that. And you can't really understand, you need both of those to understand when Nas includes the line in his 1996 song, "I Gave You Power," and you need to know all 3 of those to get Ludacris's quotation of that line in his 2004 featured appearance on Usher's "Yeah." We talked about internal rhyme and masculine rhyme and feminine rhyme, which are considered the most agile, what effect they have on listeners. Then Acrobatic passed out slips of paper, asked them to write one word on the paper and hand it back. He gave them an exercise with great strategies and instructions to write lyrics about their hometown. While they worked on that, he said he would write a rhyme using every word from their little slips of paper. The two words I remember are swashbuckling and, of course, anti-disestablishmentarianism. I probably don't need to tell you how well he pulled that off. I was floored, and I already knew the guy's music. But the students' incredibly engaged efforts were really impressive too. At least one student wrote in both English and Spanish, modeled on a song we'd played by the Cuban-American artist Mellow Man Ace. We had played the Mellow Man Ace song, Mentirosa, which weaves hilariously back and forth between English and Spanish at the beginning of a class not long before this lyrics workshop. I should tell you that we started each class off that way by playing and then discussing a song. We took turns picking the songs. With the class, we tended to talk so long and hard about those songs that, well, not to put too fine a point on it, we were always behind on the syllabus. But when students are engaged and learning and trying out new analytical constructs and words and making connections and taking notes, I'm always in ecstasy when they take notes on the songs. Why would an educator want to stop them? Another unit that showed our collaboration especially well, I feel, is the one on the hip-hop tradition of battling. We had made a song list for the author's homework assignment consisting of historically and artistically important hip-hop battles. Jay-Z and Nas, MC Shan and Boogie Down Productions. In fact, I think the moment that Acrobatic and I realized this teamwork is going to work was when we were creating the class, and we both felt really, really strongly that the battle between LL Cool J and Kool Moe Dee was entirely crucial. We might have high-fived each other in the faculty dining room. I prepared a lesson on the history of the dozens, on the ritual and friendly contests of the insults themselves and what they often revolved around, which isn't always your mama, but also the tradition of incorporating the game in African-American literature, such as the fiction of Richard Wright, Zora Neale Hurston, and Gail Jones. I introduced the sociological, cultural, linguistic approaches to the dozens that various scholars have taken. Then Acrobatic brought students to the front of the room and made them try it. This really stuck with me. I remember one pair of students who in their rhymes mocked each other's majors. When the history major told the science major, go on back to your Bunsen burner stuff, he didn't really say stuff. I nearly fell over laughing because that's basically how I always saw science requirements. My laughing ended soon enough though, because my 17-year-old daughter attended a subsequent class to help me with some 30 small visitors on Bring Your Kid to Work Day, and she dusted me. Let's just say her rhyme ended with the quite precise and concise advice that I return immediately to our mutual home and attire myself appropriately in a pair of mom jeans. So far, I've told you about moments when our pairing of history and practice took off particularly well. One reason this worked as well as it did, I think, is because the course was organized thematically. It wasn't a standard survey course, though we did make chronological progress, and in some ways this would have been easier to organize. Instead, we used what in the field of cultural studies is called the case study method. Acrobatic and I picked areas of focus together, and with the class, we scrutinized those areas of focus. We went in really deep. With only a semester to work in, this seemed better than skimming along the top of what is by now a huge body of musical material. I would like to take the moment to say to the CLA Dean, we need a hip-hop studies major. Each unit had assigned listening and assigned reading. Our units included topical rap, organized around Chuck D's brilliant characterization of hip-hop as CNN for black people, women in hip-hop, the business of hip-hop, and gangster rap. We also gave some space to the opposition in a unit called Shutting Down Hip-Hop. The class had a number of real peaks, both in terms of student learning and in terms of our pedagogical experimentation. We went out in the field quite a bit, including a visit to New York to see hip-hop's founding locations and a performance at the Middle East in Cambridge that featured our own Acrobatic and hip-hop visionary KRS-One. And you know, the students and I were both just jumping up and down with joy when Acrobatic gave us a shout out from the stage. But we also brought the field to us. The class had a Skype conversation with Chuck D of Public Enemy. I was thrilled. I mean, besides that my class was Skyping with Chuck D, so of course I was thrilled, because behind where he was sitting, you could see an entire wall of books. They were clearly visible. We also had a class visit by two brilliant graffiti artists who got the students to try their hands on cardboard, in case anybody from up the hill is listening, at creating a tag based on their own identity. It was actually fairly profound and explained a lot about when they explained why they did what they did. It was moving whether the students were particularly adept graphic artists or not. Fine motor control, we don't all have it, but we all have something to say about who we are. I was touched by the way the students threw in and tried their hand or their voice at all of the class's studio elements. They were anything but passive. You know, once at a reception for my department, I asked everybody present to say, what do you think makes a class a good class? For me, I confessed it was when somebody from next door opens the door a little bit, sticks their head in and said, would you mind keeping it down just a little in there? We did not have a problem with that this semester. After all, popular culture is very engaging, and learning to read it and contextualize it is extremely empowering and enriching. However, our class demonstrated that sometimes it can be more challenging to enter a discussion in an academic context when you already care as a consumer, in this case as a listener. Once when this contradiction presented itself, I drew a line down the middle of the blackboard, wrote fan on one side, scholar on the other side. Then I dragged a student up to the front, made him stand under the word fan, comment on a song we just heard. Then I made him stand under scholar and comment on a song, make a different comment about a song we had just heard. He was a good sport about it. The two comments were related, of course, but two modalities of audiencehood required different sets of concerns and literacies and priorities and rules of engagement, a whole different toolkit, actually. Even having articulated these different approaches, of course, there were disagreements. In fact, Acrobatic and I deliberately orchestrated some of those disagreements to show students what differing perspectives have to offer and to give them permission to disagree respectfully, even with us. At least some of you could probably guess who were the most polarizing artists last semester. Kanye West and Nicki Minaj, but really Kanye West. Definitely Kanye West, actually, loudly Kanye West. The students were all over the map, but when it came to Acrobatic and me, I was in the pro camp. But it's important for me, for students to learn that, that they can learn a lot from historical figures and artists they might hate. I did another one of my blackboard drawings. I wrote Kanye West, then I wrote his stage name Yeezus, and then I wrote jerk. I asked the students to tell me what he could accomplish in each of those personas. I like to remind them about how, as Jay-Z said about his supposed beef with Nas, it's performance art. My daughter did it better. She came home from school one day having had an argument and said, man, Kanye West is better able to piss off white people than anybody since Muhammad Ali. May I say that Kanye's coinage of the term swag-heely is enough to forgive him a lot. He says, my mind moves like a Tron bike, pop a wheelie on the zeitgeist, fitting to start a new movement led by the drums. They be ballin' in the D-League, I be squeaking swag-heely. As great critic Greg Tate put it, did he just define his whole career as a visionary lingua franca and genre right there? You goddamn betcha he did. And with as brilliant a neo-African neologism as we've heard since Boogie Down Productions let us know, there were robo-Coptic boys among us. I'd like to end by making these disagreements literal by daring to battle Acrobatic. There is some history here. When we had the unit on battling, our students were shy about starting it, so we called a few pairs up, and then I asked him to get them going. He was gentle, but still hilarious. I remember two young men standing in front of us, both wearing plaid flannel shirts, and Act saying something like, when we're done, this place is gonna smell like an onion because we got a broke lumberjack and a broke Paul Bunyan. The next class, I had realized he had gotten off fully free because the students then replied to each other instead of him. So I dared to throw down a few rhymes at him, and he was far too kind to reply. But UMass Boston's 50th birthday is so special that we want to mark it in a memorable way. Therefore, we're going to battle very briefly here. I will do my nerdy, pathetic best. Remember, I am not an artist. And Ack will then destroy me, but don't worry. I can take it. It's for a good cause. Yeah.
Check.
All right.
Ladies first.
I'm not lady. Did you think because class was over and you skated and call me Arnold because you're slated to be terminated? Your style's kind of fake. You're allergic to cake. I'm a smoothie and you're a shake. Instead of act, they should call you ache. Matter of fact, you sound like Drake. I'm old and white and my stuff's more tight. I'm from Baltimore House. You're from First Night. But I got something that I can lend you what you need. It's called My Doll, honey, because you're gonna bleed.
The integrity is there, no doubt. But here's your books back, Professor Rubin. Your fledgling rap career is about to get ruined. Now, I don't want to make you sound like a fuddy-duddy, but I'm going to send you back with your American Studies buddies. Because acrobatic keeps it on point like a cactus. And now your history, go back and practice.
Oh! Genius.
Just leave the rap in the act, and then you can't miss. Sincerely yours, the big man on campus. She's great.
And we have a couple of our students here. Hi. Okay, thank you. Yeah, stay here and take questions.
You know, first of all, Professor Rubin broke down the experience of the class so eloquently and beautifully, and it really was an incredible experience. The students that we had were fantastic. And, you know, me being a local artist and someone who's lived here my whole life, I'm really excited about, you know, the institutions, especially UMass Boston, jumping on this, you know, so soon and bringing something that's so vital culturally to the students of the campus, because a lot of the students of the campus are from the area, and so to be learning it from somebody with my experiences and having the opportunity to share it with them has just been a really fantastic thing, so I'm really thankful. And the last thing I want to say is that Chancellor Motley at one time was my dean when I was in college, and you know, I just saw him for the first time in like 20 years, and his face lit up when I told him I was a professor at his school, and that makes me feel good, you know what I'm saying? So thank you.